Kelly Wickham. She's a blogger, an assistant principal at a middle school, and a fearless writer of manifestos. She is also a champion of girls. When she grows up, she wants to change the world with her words, and yet be a chorus voice of other girls and women who are doing the same. She's inspired by other women who tell their truth and who own their narrative, however shady or awful their past may be, so that they may fully complete themselves as women, but also as women who take their rightful place as world citizens, and she refuses to take no for an answer. She loves the shit out of her past mistakes. She also loves the shit out of her children, her close family, her friends who give her life, and the Cuban, and I love the shit out of her. Kelly implores you to demand the supply.
You guys want to photobomb me? Are you smiling yet? Oh, I see you. You're in the aisle. Ready? Go. There are a few overt things my mother taught me when I was a child that I can recall with such clarity. She sometimes cannot believe it when I repeat it back to her. I've never felt like I was smart. And my older sister got all the physical compliments when we were younger, and we are merely 14 months apart, enough to look like twins when we were younger, as neither of us outgrew the other one by a wide margin. I say this to point out that if you have nearly identical sized children and one of them gets all the compliments of, "She is so pretty," and "Isn't she beautiful?" and the other one doesn't, then the other one grows up insecure and full of doubt. I don't blame my sister, and I'm not jealous of her to this day, but it was hard to be raised with her. When she was born, my parents had friends who also gave birth around the same time, and when the couples decided to get together with their babies and introduce them to one another, my sister lit up the room. I'm not bragging here because the bragging rights don't belong to me, but Erin was stunning and gorgeous as a baby. Big brown eyes and large curly locks and caramel skin. The other couple's baby that came to meet them were insanely jealous because, as my mother has told in stories, their baby looked like Mr. Magoo. Those parents never spoke to mine again, and my mom was convinced, as terrible as this sounds, that it was because they felt inferior or bad about having an uglier baby. I grew up with a beautiful sister. I could totally relate to those parents. When it came to raising me, my mom was fairly common sense with her parenting, but I stripped a lot of that away from her by getting pregnant too soon at 14 with my daughter Mallory. She may deny it, but she's probably still a little angry with me about that. The lessons she taught me helped me add a protective layer to my skin. And I didn't realize that I needed any of that until I was out on my own with a 3-year-old in a small college town. It was, to say the least, a financially crushing time. It was filled with lessons from poverty that even to this day fill me with dread and stomach-sinking realities of being poor. Poverty has long-lasting effects like that. And I first experienced this when I got my first paycheck as a teacher and had to go to the grocery store and buy groceries with my own money. It was weird and shameful, and I could not put my finger on these new conflicted feelings. In college, Mallory and I were on welfare and got food stamps. And I found Section 8 housing for us, but paying for electricity was still a problem. I learned to just call them and tell them that I wouldn't have money until such and such a date, and could they please let me have light and heat in the meantime? One time, though, I sent them a check on time, and by on time, I mean I talked to someone who said that if I got the check there by Friday, it would be okay. But then Friday afternoon came, and I picked up Mallory from daycare and came home to a dark apartment. I called them and asked them if they got my check, and they had. But they wouldn't turn my electricity back on until next week. That's when I picked up Mallory, put her in our clunker of a car, and headed down to their office, where I took a number and waited for my name to be called. When I got up there in the front of the line, I had Mallory on my hip, hoping that seeing a single mother with a baby would sway her to let me have some heat and light for the weekend. I paid, and it was late, but it got there on the date that we agreed on. The company sent someone to turn off my electricity, and it was only 1 in the afternoon. Surely they could send that person back out, and they could fix this for me so that I didn't have to go through the whole weekend without it. She said, no, we'll schedule someone for Monday, sometime. Through all my frustration and rage that was boiling beneath my skin, I started becoming flustered and wondered if I was gonna turn into that screaming woman in a public place. You know what I'm talking about. And then I remembered this phrase that my mother taught me. That is unacceptable. Mom said that if you use that phrase and you stop talking, inevitably the other person would have to fill the silence with stammering and excuses and bullshit. And she was right. I said it and then promptly shut my mouth and glared at her. I was a 19-year-old girl trying very hard to be a woman. It was entirely lost on me how systemic poverty worked, and that she and I were locked in this battle that she may have wanted to win, but I needed to win. I needed to win this one. Normally, I don't think of things in those terms, of winners and losers. But she worked for a company who didn't feel like giving me something that I paid for, albeit late. And I was a girl woman living in poverty who needed to be able to keep her child warm and turn on the lights to do homework. Systemic poverty is unacceptable. It is a weapon we wield with careless abandon by ignoring the human faces behind it. This electric company worker couldn't help herself and kept filling the void with meaningless words, and I let her until she finally stammered out that she would call the guy to come back out and turn it on right now. Victory. I demanded the supply they had to offer, but something was still wrong. It wasn't the electric current that would soon be flowing to my home. Instead, it was a small slice of humanity that they denied me by brushing off my needs. I needed her or them to see my face when they were going to deny me and put me at the bottom of their list. Girls, ladies, please practice and do this. When things are unacceptable, tell people. When systemic poverty or sexism or racism is at play, call that shit out. My women friends do this. They call it out. They're voicing their displeasure at what's offered, and then they are refusing to take it. It takes a lot of practice, and it begins the first time we use our voice and teach people how to treat us. It begins with a human face and human interaction and questioning authority when it makes no damn sense. It begins with a demand, sometimes a very small one. The supply is out there, I have learned, and it's for the taking. It's just that the takers seem to always possess more entitlement than I. At least it did, until I learned to try the supply out for myself, and even in cases when I needed to get electricity. It builds and it grows, and that is precisely how we grow in confidence and become women who demand other things and increase expectations. We're doing it right now for our daughters, and this is not easy work. It is grueling and filled with opposition, but it is necessary work. It's work that makes me feel smart and forget about wanting to be pretty. It is, I have come to accept, my life's work. You have permission to demand. Do it with abandon. Let somebody else fill the void with blathering nonsense and bullshit. Thank you.